Philippa of England was a medieval princess, and that in itself isn't that remarkable. But what is remarkable is how much Philippa would push against the boundaries of what she was expected to be. She would go far beyond the dutiful princess and wife she was brought up to be, taking charge of an army in her husband's absence, defending the countries of the Kalmar Union, and serving as regent in her own right. She was born on the 4th June 1394 at Peterborough in England, likely at a royal residence attached to the cathedral, the daughter of Henry Bolingbroke, who later became King Henry IV and Mary de Bohun. Philippa's birth placed her within the powerful and politically influential House of Lancaster at a time when England was undergoing significant upheaval. Her early childhood unfolded amidst the complex dynastic struggles that culminated in her father's seizure of the English throne from King Richard II in 1399, establishing a period marked by instability and political tension. Mary de Bohun, Philippa's mother, was known for being unusually involved in the lives of her children, contrary to the typical medieval noble practice where young aristocrats were often raised predominantly by servants and tutors. Historical records suggest that Mary showed a particular devotion to her offspring, investing considerable personal care and attention into their early upbringing. Tragically, this affectionate maternal presence ended abruptly with Mary's untimely death in 1394, in childbirth, as she brought Philippa into the world. Mary's death profoundly affected Philippa's childhood, leaving her bereft of maternal warmth and directly influencing the development of her resilience and emotional independence. Following her mother's passing, Philippa's upbringing was entrusted to a series of governesses, tutors, and household officials. She received an education typical of medieval royal princesses, which focused heavily on religious studies, classical literature, courtly etiquette, and the mastery of languages, particularly French and Latin. Philippa was raised alongside her siblings, including her famous brother who would become King Henry V, in a politically charged environment, absorbing the complexities and subtleties of royal diplomacy from a young age. Philippa of England's path toward marriage was shaped by diplomatic negotiations designed to reinforce alliances and secure peace in Europe, a common practice among medieval royal families. Once becoming king, her father Henry faced considerable internal and external pressures after deposing Richard II and was eager to solidify his legitimacy through strong foreign alliances. In the early 1400s, England sought closer ties with the powerful Kalmar Union, which united the kingdoms of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden under one crown. Such an alliance promised enhanced trading opportunities, increased security against mutual rivals, and a strengthened position within the complex web of Europe's politics. King Erik of Pomerania, the young ruler of the Kalmar Union, had ascended to the throne in 1396, with his aunt, Queen Margaret I, acting as regent until he reached maturity. Margaret, a formidable political figure, sought to secure Erik's reign and reinforce the legitimacy and stability of the Union. She viewed an alliance with England favourably, considering it strategically beneficial to counterbalance the influence of the Hanseatic League and other European powers. Negotiations between England and the Kalmar Union commenced, ultimately focusing on a suitable bride from the English royal family. Young Philippa, as a daughter of the newly established Lancastrian monarchy, presented a highly attractive choice. In 1405, at just 11 years old, Philippa was formally married by proxy to Erik of Pomerania in England. Proxy marriages were common medieval practice, allowing political alliances to be secured swiftly without immediate physical union. In Philippa's case, the proxy ceremony symbolically affirmed the diplomatic bond between England and the Kalmar Union. Following this event, preparations began immediately for her journey to Scandinavia, a voyage marking not only a profound personal shift for Philippa, but also the formal ratification of this pivotal diplomatic alliance. Philippa's journey to Scandinavia commenced in the autumn of 1406. Accompanied by a distinguished retinue, the young princess embarked on the perilous journey by sea, departing from the English coast amid considerable pomp. After enduring the difficulties and dangers inherent in medieval travel through the sea, she arrived safely in Scandinavia, welcomed warmly by Erik and his court. The formal wedding took place on the 26th of October 1406 at Lund Cathedral in southern Sweden, one of Scandinavia's most significant religious and ceremonial locations. Philippa was also one of the first documented brides to wear white for her wedding, with a cloak made of white silk. The marriage ceremony was lavishly celebrated, attended by nobles and dignitaries from across the region, and marked by days of festivities that publicly showcased the alliance's strength and significance. Despite her tender age and the dramatic change of cultural environment, Philippa adapted remarkably well. She quickly embraced her new surroundings, demonstrating exceptional linguistic talent by rapidly acquiring proficiency in Scandinavian languages. This linguistic skill facilitated her integration into Scandinavian court life and won admiration from courtiers and common people alike. Her willingness to adopt local customs and immerse herself in her new homeland further solidified her popularity, reinforcing the stability of the alliance her marriage represented. Crucially, the union between Philippa and Erik quickly transcended its initial political purposes. Their marriage, while initially pragmatic, evolved into a supportive, respectful, and affectionate partnership. Philippa became not only a trusted consort, but also a significant political advisor, working closely alongside Erik on diplomatic and administrative matters. This close cooperation would characterize their reign and firmly establish Philippa's reputation as an influential figure within Scandinavian politics. For the first 3 years of their marriage, Philippa and Erik resided at Kalmar Castle in Sweden. Philippa was given her own court as expected for a queen, supervised by her chief lady-in-waiting, Lady Katarina Knutsdotter, who was a granddaughter of Saint Bridget of Sweden. Traditionally, queens were expected to occupy ceremonial roles focused on courtly life, charity, and motherhood, while political engagement remained predominantly the domain of male sovereigns and advisors. Philippa, however, quickly distinguished herself through active participation in governance, diplomatic negotiations, and internal politics within the Kalmar Union, a political entity uniting Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. From her earliest years at Erik's side, Philippa demonstrated exceptional diplomatic skill and political acumen. Fluent in multiple languages, including Latin, French, and rapidly acquired proficiency in Danish and Swedish, she easily navigated the complexities of international politics and internal governance. Philippa's diplomatic abilities were particularly significant during delicate negotiations with the Hanseatic League, an influential alliance of merchant cities along the Baltic coast. The League dominated trade in Northern Europe and held substantial economic and political power, frequently clashing with the Kalmar Union over trade rights and territorial influence. Recognizing Philippa's diplomatic finesse, Erik frequently relied on her to represent their interests during negotiations. Philippa skillfully balanced firmness with diplomacy, maintaining cordial relationships while protecting the Union's economic and strategic interests. Her tactful handling of these exchanges notably enhanced the Kalmar Union's international standing and elevated her reputation as a capable and respected political figure. Internally, Philippa's role was equally vital. The Kalmar Union, despite its united front, faced considerable internal tensions, notably between Denmark and Sweden. These tensions were driven by long-standing historical rivalries, divergent economic interests, and persistent struggles over regional autonomy. Philippa's diplomatic skills proved essential in mitigating these conflicts, as she regularly engaged with Swedish and Danish nobles, leveraging her reputation for fairness and impartiality. Through astute mediation, Philippa helped to stabilize internal relations and ease conflicts, significantly contributing to maintaining peace and cohesion within the Union during her early tenure as queen. In 1412, Queen Margaret died, and although the couple had spent some time from 1409 in Denmark, it officially became the royal residence of Erik, now king in his own right. While he preferred Denmark, Philippa always returned to Sweden for visits, and it's likely she developed a fondness over the other Scandinavian countries she was queen of due to her formative experience as queen being shaped there and her connection to Vadstena Abbey. Philippa's influence extended beyond pure diplomacy and governance. She took a keen interest in supporting religious institutions and education, understanding their importance in fostering unity and cultural exchange across her husband's diverse kingdoms. Her patronage notably included the Brigittine Abbey at Vadstena. By endorsing cultural and educational initiatives, Philippa actively promoted intellectual and cultural ties across the Union, further strengthening political harmony. In 1415, this abbey became an important link to England as well, as English members of Philippa's entourage visited to seek members of the abbey who wished to set up a new Brigittine Abbey in England. Several did, and they would create the foundation of Sion Abbey, a place that would become an important base for many of the English royals. But Philippa's most significant and historically celebrated political contributions occurred during the 1420s, a period when King Erik increasingly travelled abroad to address diplomatic disputes and international issues. In 1420, the Pomeranian Act of Succession was amended to state that if Erik died without issue, not only would Philippa be regent until his cousin Bogusław IX of Pomerania arrived to become king, but that she would remain as regent if Bogusław was still not yet of age. To go with this, Philippa's dower lands were shifted around to give her great parcels of land in Sweden, effectively making her ruler of central Sweden, although not officially. Philippa was also entrusted in 1420 with regency over Sweden in March 1422, when she formally summoned and presided over a council of the estates in Vadstena, and in August 1425, Erik handed control of the taxes of Åland to Philippa, although again, none of these were official roles. Regency roles, while not unheard of for medieval queens, rarely extended beyond ceremonial oversight. Philippa, however, was entrusted with administrative authority, overseeing complex government affairs and maintaining political stability during Erik's extended absences, an indication of her established trustworthiness, diplomatic talent, and political insight. However, she did also have official roles as regent. From 1423 to 1425, when Erik went on pilgrimage, Philippa served as regent of the three kingdoms from Copenhagen. During the autumn of 1424, she resolved a dispute with the Hanseatic League over the coinage system, and in the spring of 1425, she summoned and presided over a meeting of the Swedish Council of the Estates in Stockholm. Her skill and Erik's confidence in her only grew, and it wasn't long before Philippa's talents for negotiation were turned to war. He sent her to Sweden in 1426 in order to secure funds for the Dano-Hanseatic War, a task made more difficult due to the Swedish opposition to the war. Not only did Philippa secure the funds, but she returned for more the following year and succeeded, as well as gaining more Swedish lands for herself. This was presumably where she planned to retire if she ended up a widow. But Philippa's regency became particularly renowned due to her extraordinary leadership during a crisis that arose in 1428. At that time, the Hanseatic League launched a naval attack against Copenhagen, motivated by ongoing trade conflicts, economic tensions, and disputes over maritime dominance in the Baltic Sea. King Erik was absent, and immediate decisive action was required. It was Philippa who assumed direct control of the city's defences, an extraordinary act for a queen of her era. The bombardment of Copenhagen placed Philippa in command of the city's military and civil defences, a role almost unprecedented for a medieval queen consort. Recognizing the seriousness of the threat, Philippa swiftly organized the city's defensive strategy. She mobilized soldiers, reinforced fortifications, and coordinated civilian efforts, demonstrating clear, effective leadership under intense pressure. Historical accounts vividly describe her presence on the city walls in full view, personally supervising defensive preparations, issuing decisive orders, and motivating defenders to stand firm. Her authoritative yet reassuring presence likely provided crucial morale during the siege, uniting citizens and soldiers alike in a common purpose. The Hanseatic forces, initially confident of swift victory due to Erik's absence and perceived internal disorganization, encountered unexpectedly fierce resistance under Philippa's command. Her strategic foresight proved critical in repelling enemy attacks, notably through careful coordination of defensive measures that maximized Copenhagen's fortifications and resources. Historical chronicles record Philippa's determination, courage, and tactical awareness as instrumental factors in successfully thwarting the Hanseatic League's siege, forcing their eventual withdrawal. Philippa's successful defense of Copenhagen was more than merely a military triumph. It was a profoundly symbolic moment. Her decisive action and leadership elevated her from respected political figure to celebrated national heroine. The event was widely reported and praised throughout Scandinavia, significantly enhancing her reputation and reinforcing the legitimacy of her authority in her husband's prolonged absence. Despite Philippa's remarkable achievements and resilience as regent and military leader, her later life was increasingly troubled by health issues. By the late 1420s, Philippa began suffering from an unspecified recurring illness, possibly tuberculosis, which intermittently affected her for at least 5 years prior to her death. The condition progressively weakened her physically, forcing her into periods of withdrawal from active political responsibilities and limiting her ability to engage in public life as energetically as she previously had. In late 1429, Philippa undertook an official diplomatic mission to Sweden on behalf of King Erik. Her goal was to secure yet more Swedish support for Erik's ongoing war. Upon arriving in Sweden, she travelled as usual to Vadstena Abbey, an institution she had long supported and patronised. There, she was warmly received by a delegation from the Swedish Riksråd, reflecting her high standing and respected status within the region. However, shortly after her arrival at the Abbey, Philippa's chronic illness returned with alarming severity. Compounding her weakened condition, she suffered the tragedy of giving birth to a stillborn son. This devastating event precipitated a rapid deterioration in her health, from which she never recovered. Her illness, compounded by the physical and emotional trauma of the stillbirth, swiftly led to her decline. Philippa died on the 5th of January 1430, aged just 35, at Vadstena Abbey. Her untimely passing was met with widespread grief throughout the Kalmar Union, a profound testament to her popularity, the respect she had earned, and the deep appreciation felt by the Scandinavian people for her governance and leadership. She was laid to rest at Vadstena Abbey, honoured with a dignified burial befitting a queen whose influence and contributions had significantly shaped the Union's political and cultural life. Philippa's legacy endures as a powerful example of how medieval queens could transcend traditional gender roles and significantly influence political, cultural, and military affairs. Her extraordinary courage during the siege of Copenhagen and her skilled diplomacy and governance reshaped contemporary perceptions of female capability and leadership, establishing her as one of Scandinavia's most admired historical figures, often being favourably remembered against Erik, who was less well liked. Her reign was notable not only for her political achievements, but also for her extensive cultural patronage. Her support for religious institutions such as Vadstena Abbey, along with her advocacy for education and cultural exchange, greatly enriched Scandinavian court culture, leaving a lasting intellectual and spiritual heritage. Today, Philippa of England is celebrated not merely for her diplomatic acumen and courage, but also for her unique role in strengthening historical bonds between England and the Scandinavian kingdoms. Her life illustrates vividly the profound impact a queen could have in a world where women's voices were frequently marginalized and overlooked. Philippa's story challenges conventional narratives, inspiring us to recognize and celebrate the hidden histories of women who, like Philippa, defied limitations and shaped the world around them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new documentaries.